Good. Hare Krishna and good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us this evening with the Many Moons podcast. We are having episode number 19, and tonight I'm very grateful for having Narayani Devi Dasi as our guest speaker, and she will be speaking about her life with Srila Prabhupada. So, for those of you who may not have known Narayani yet, she's a disciple of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. She joined ISKCON in 1970 and she's done many services for Srila Prabhupada, including deity worship in the Calcutta Temple, traveling book distribution in Western India for the Bombay Temple, and teaching Bhakti Shastri, Bhakti Vaibhava, and Bhaktivedanta courses at the VIHE in Vrindavan. She also helped to write the VTE curriculum for Bhakti Shastri and has written a series of 12 books, including Srimad Bhagavatam at a glance, which has a picture for every verse, as well as Bhagavad Gita at a glance, which has a picture for every verse. She continues to reside in Sri Vrindavan Dham in India, and she continues to publish and write and study for a yearly preaching tour. She also still travels and she visits temples in countries all over the world, including Australia, New Zealand, Denmark, and Germany, as well as temples across the US. So she is also initiating Guru in ISKCON. I think many of us will know she was the first lady Vaishnavi Diksha Guru within ISKCON. So we're very honored to have her with us tonight. I know at the moment she's also traveling in the US and she's made time for us to speak on this topic, which I believe is radio to her heart, and that is her life with Srila Prabhupada. So a warm welcome to you, Narayani Prabhu, and thank you so much for taking out of your precious time to be with us.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
So I'd like to start our discussion by asking you, how did you meet Srila Prabhupada?
Well, I was searching for a guru. I knew I needed a guru, and I tried many different processes. And so I went to the temple in Boston and I asked them, so what is your process? And they said, chant, dance, and eat. And I said, okay, if I chant, dance, and eat, what can I hope to achieve? And they said, you will see Krishna, you will see God. And I said, yes. The other gurus told me I will be God. I don't want to be God. I want to see God. So Prabhupada, I first met in Gainesville, Florida, when he went down there in 1971. And the first time I saw him, I was following behind him at the airport. And for the first time in my life, I felt like here is where I belong. I never felt like I belonged anywhere in this world. In school, at the age of 10, I looked at the other children and I said, I'm not one of them. I'm not from here. Maybe I'm from a different country or maybe from a different planet, but I'm not American. I'm not from here. So when I went to India, I felt better also, that I felt more at home. But when I saw Srila Prabhupada, I felt secure and protected and belonging. And I felt I can do this the rest of my life. I can follow him.
Thank you so much. That was really beautiful. It really sounded like you had an experience of homecoming the moment that you met Srila Prabhupada. And I think it's extraordinary that for some people, the home is not necessarily a place, but it's a person. And it sounds like Srila Prabhupada was definitely that person for you. And I think also for many other disciples, they felt the same. And also that sense of finding a place where you belong. And Prabhupada also created that for so many people. So could you share with us what attracted you to Srila Prabhupada beyond this, this feeling of having essentially a shelter? What else attracted you?
Well, his books. I was an avid reader for my whole life since the age of 7. And when I read the Gita, I said, wow, here's a philosophy that agrees with my philosophy. I didn't think Gita was better than me, but after a while I realized, oh, yes, So the books. I joined the Boston Temple, and we were doing Harinam 10 hours a day. I loved the Harinam, the dancing and the chanting. And all the artists and the whole press was in Boston. So I loved the beautiful pictures of Narada Muni and the Panch Tattva. And of course, the prasadam it was very amazing. In those days, it was very, very special. He had so many preparations for the Sunday feast. And all of this attracted me to Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I have a little side question. I'm curious. I know your books, the Srimad Bhagavatam at a glance and the Bhagavad Gita at a glance. I found it quite incredible that there is an illustration for every single verse, which, according to my knowledge, is quite a unique contribution, to Vedic literature. And I remember seeing one of those books, and I was really attracted to it because I opened it up, and then just over 2 pages, I could learn so much, because I think those pages were like, kind of the summary pages. So could you maybe share something? Have you always been attracted to art and using art as a way to, educate? Because you mentioned, there were artists in the temple that you initially came to.
Well, I had an artist who was a friend, and she told me that Prabhupada instructed the artists that he wanted a picture for every verse of Bhagavad Gita. So she asked me if I could help her by giving the text. And then I thought, yes, this is a really good idea. And so I did that with her. We went over every single verse. And then I got the idea, well, I should do Bhagavatam too, because I was studying Bhagavatam. And so while I was chanting, I had a vision how the whole Bhagavatam would look. I was thinking, how is it related to Krishna? And then there was this verse, how the lotus feet is the first canto and second canto, and his legs are the third canto, and all the way up. And then I saw how it would look when I was chanting japa. When I chant japa, then I get connection with the super soul in the heart. Art, I never was an artist, and so it's something that came to me as a devotee. There are so many things I learned as a devotee that I never did in my life before, except reading. Reading was something I did.
Thank you. That was a beautiful story. And for those of you that haven't seen the books, I do really encourage to have a look at the books. And I'm just going to share Narayani Prabhu's website. I think there's links to all of the books there. It is really, I think, such a incredible way for me to get more immersed, within the books. And it's very interesting to find out that Prabhupada actually gave that instruction, that there should be there should be an image, a drawing, or artwork for each verse. I never knew that, so it was wonderful to find out what inspired you. So to backtrack to our previous conversation, sorry, I hijacked it a little bit. We were speaking about what you find attractive about Srila Prabhupada, and then you mentioned the books, and you mentioned that basically, I think since a very young age, you knew you were looking for something different. But we haven't heard much about if you had any personal interactions with Srila Prabhupada. So are there any personal interactions that you could share with us?
Yes. I went to Vrindavan in 1972 for Nectar of Devotion classes. And there he singled me out in one darshan, and he said to me, "My sister tells me you speak Bhagavatam very nicely." Now, I never spoke Bhagavatam, what to speak of nicely. And so I was wondering, I was very puzzled, like I couldn't answer. And then I remembered on Janmashtami Day, I was reading Krishna book. We had to read from morning till night. And my turn came, and Prabhupada's sister was sitting in front of me listening, and she didn't know any English, only Bengali. And she was crying. I was talking how Krishna left the gopis, and she started crying, and I don't know how she understood. And then she told Prabhupada. But I took it that this was a prophecy that came from Prabhupada's mouth. And it happened 30 years later, I started speaking Bhagavatam. And then the second thing, Mayapur, another thing happened. They needed somebody to type for Prabhupada Chaitanya Charitamrita. So I was in Calcutta, and Pradyumna said, we need a typist, because I was typing when I joined in Boston also, Bhagavad Gita. And so he said, you have to learn to read Bengali, and we're leaving tomorrow. So he gave me a little book I learned in one day. I said, okay, I'm ready, because we'll do anything to go with Prabhupada. So next day I was off, and we were living in the Lotus building, which was under construction, very austere. And so we didn't have windows. We just had holes in the wall. And Prabhupada was walking. I was not in the ladies' ashram, in another room. I was typing, sitting on the floor on a trunk. We didn't have furniture. And a manual typewriter, right, which you have to hit every time. It doesn't enter, it doesn't work, And so Prabhupada walked, and I had the headphones on my head from the dictaphone. And I had a big, huge Bengali book open in front of me, the Chaitanya Charitamrita in Bengali. And I was hearing him speak in Bengali. I was reading the Bengali. I was typing in English letters, transliteration. And he said, oh, you know Bengali? I said, yes, Srila Prabhupada. And he said, oh, come to my room. So I said, okay. And so I want to learn how to type in Bengali. So I learned to type when Brahmachari taught me. And he said, and Prabhupada said, we will do many books together. Now, that didn't happen because I had to go back to Calcutta because all the pujaris left. I had to become the head pujari. But the Brahmachari told me when I was typing, he said, and I told the Brahmachari, I said, look, you don't have to look at the keys. You just look at the page and you remember the keys. And so he said, oh, Prabhupada told me you teach her and you learn from her also. So then, so 30 years later, I started doing books, and I believe those were the books he was talking about. So that was another prophecy. I never thought I was going to write books, but it happened. I got inspired and it happened. So many things happened like that in my life. Doing deity worship. I never did deity worship before I was into clothes or anything. And all of a sudden here I'm dressing the deities and arranging flowers and decorating. And so I had a few interactions with Prabhupada. I can't tell all of them because we don't have time. Maybe at the end I could tell more. I'll just tell one thing, that in Calcutta, there was great opulence of flowers. I had one man who was donating 50 garlands a day. And we had Gaur, Radha Krishna, and Jagannath Subhadra, and Balaram. So 50 garlands. So I would change the flowers 5 times a day. And we had all kinds of garlands. And so there was a window behind the deities, and the bumblebees used to come in and go on the flowers. On Radha Govinda's side, there were big, huge black bumblebees. They would circle. I had 144 lotuses every day. They would come and sit in the lotus flower on Krishna's flute or wherever, and then they would go out. And on Jagannath's side were small, small bees, and they would just sit on the garlands the whole day. And that's like in Vaikuntha, it tells you how the bees would sit on the garlands. Because I was reading the books and I was thinking, oh, this is Vaikuntha on one side and Goloka on the other. And the bees, and Prabhupada said, when the bees are coming to the deities, that means Krishna is pleased with the worship. Now, another time, one of the artists, I think his name was Vishnu, was in Calcutta, and Prabhupada asked for a picture of Radha Govinda. And so we gave him a picture, and he told the artist, you should paint Krishna like this, very young. So, yeah, those were some of the things that happened to me with Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you so much for sharing those pastimes. And I'm very sure that if we have time in the end, everyone will be very enthusiastic to hear more pastimes. I personally, I really find it so encouraging and uplifting to hear all these, the direct experiences of devotees. One thing that really stood out to me was your fearless enthusiasm to serve Srila Prabhupada, because as far as I know, you didn't really know Bengali yet when you very fervently
No.
volunteered to do the service. It's just incredible. And I just had this picture in my mind of you sitting there with the earphones and trying to hear Prabhupada speak Bengali at the same time read Bengali and then type in English. That must have been quite a feat. So could you maybe say something short on whether you think that Srila Prabhupada did empower you to do that service and can continue to
Yeah.
empower us to do service if we have that enthusiasm? Because it seemed that when you started off, you didn't really have the skill yet, but because of the
Yeah.
enthusiasm, you did it.
Well, it's not only enthusiasm, we have faith. We
Mm,
have faith that we could do the impossible. That
mm,
that's one thing we learned from Prabhupada. Impossible is a word in the Fool's Dictionary. That's one point.
mm,
And second point, we'll do anything to be with him. So you put the two together, and yeah, you have, we could do it. I did it the first day I joined. They gave me Isha Upanishad, said, okay, you have to learn to read Sanskrit because you're going to type Bhagavad Gita now. So I also, I thought, all right, I already did Sanskrit. I can do Bengali. What's the difference? It's a different alphabet. But the thing is that, yes, he empowered us. He actually, he didn't see what qualification we had and what body we had. He just said, okay, just do it. He gave us an order and we just did it. That was how we were.
Thank you. No, it was yeah, it's very inspiring to hear. And then another, just a short question that I had. You mentioned that you had this wonderful exchange of Prabhupada's sister, which you heard you speak in English, but somehow her heart was really touched, and she was convinced that you should speak Bhagavatam, and then that message got relayed to Srila Prabhupada, and he gave you the instruction. But then you mentioned that, if I heard correctly, it took you 30 years before you actually started doing that. So could you share with us why you waited for that period of time, if I heard you correctly, before you felt that
Um,
you were ready to take on that instruction?
well, it happened after Prabhupada left. Um, and it's how I would deepen my relationship with Srila Prabhupada also. That would also be included there. That I was in Vrindavan, and for the first time in my life, I had no service. So I was praying, and I wasn't given any service. There was actually not much for women to do
Mm,
except make garlands. And
mm,
so I was thinking, what service should I do for Prabhupada now? Praying. Then I got the idea, okay, I'm going to do a japa reform, and maybe if I chant nicely, I'll get the
mm,
idea. So I did that, and definitely for 3 months I was feeling empowered by Krishna. I wrote a whole poetry book. It's available on Amazon. Yeah, called Garden of Devotion. And so those were all my realizations that were coming out in that 3 months. And so what I understood that my service, I said, until I know my service, I'm just going to read the books because that's what I like to do. So then I was reading the books, and then it came in my chanting, you have to share the books. You don't just read, you share. And I said, okay, how am I going to share? This is Vrindavan. Women don't speak. Women don't give class. VIG is for men. Bhakti Shakti is only for men. This was 1994. 1994. I didn't give class before because nobody asked me.
mm,
I was in India. I was in India. And I didn't think, I didn't feel qualified to give class. I felt like I never
mm,
spoke in my life. How can I speak? And then I was kind of a little bit in shock when I got this instruction. I thought, oh dear, how am I going to do this? But first I wanted some confirmation. So I went to Prabhupada's Samadhi. There was a tape playing. The tape said, so do you think the deity is made of stone? I said, no, you're here. I believe it, but I want some personal confirmation. So I got the idea, okay, I'll go to Prabhupada's house. There was every day a letter on his desk, and maybe that letter will give me some confirmation. So I saw the letter. The letter said, now you are one of my senior disciples. I'm counting on you. I'm depending on you. You have learned the art of Krishna consciousness. Now I want you to teach it purely for the benefit of everyone. I said, oh, okay. Got my confirmation. But the problem was there was no facility in Vrindavan. Women didn't give any classes. And VIHE was only for men. It's Bhakti Shastri. You could attend Bhagavad Gita, but not the other classes. You couldn't take the test and become qualified. So I thought, okay. So I started having class in the outside house where I was living. But then the guards complained, you can't have private people. This is a private house. You can't have people here. So then I went up to the top of the Krishna Balaram guest house on the roof, and I was teaching up there. And then after a year of that, I got a place, Sheshan Prabhu's house, where for 2 years I was teaching there. And after 3 years, the VIG opened for women. So when you don't have facility, you just have to make it. This is spiritual life. It's not material life. Material life, there's so many obstacles and very hard to overcome. But in spiritual life, if you have a strong desire, you just do it. Prabhupada, I was convinced that was Prabhupada's instruction, and I just did it. And then after that, the next summer, I was traveling all over Europe teaching. And the next year, I taught the brahmacharis in Vrindavan. So it was like, because their teacher didn't show up. So you see, if you just try to do it, make your own facility, then you will get empowered and you will get the facility. Facility will come.
So just to clarify that year when you then had to teach the brahmacharis because their teacher didn't show up, was that how you got involved in teaching as a full-time teacher for Bhakti Shastri at VIHE?
No, first it was the women. I taught the women the first year. And then after the first year, I traveled in Europe. And then I taught the men the next year, only part, like one section. Yeah. So, and then the women too. I had separate classes.
Yeah, I've listened to some of those early VIHE Bhakti Shastri recordings, and I do encourage devotees to try and find them. I think they're still on Desire Tree. It's a very systematic, but at the same time nourishing study of Bhagavad Gita, and of course Shishupanishad, nectar of devotion, nectar of instruction. And I wanted to say I do have to be honest. I feel sad when I hear about the difficulties that ladies have gone through in ISKCON, especially in the early days. Like when you tell me that VAHE was only for men, and that you were in Vrindavan at that time, even you were a senior disciple of Srila Prabhupada, but you had virtually no service because no one was asking you to contribute. It does make me feel sad. It also shows to me that we have made progress, but I think my biggest takeaway is that as you've shown now through your story, because you had the desire and you really, explored all your options, Krishna then facilitated your service in the end. So that was really beautiful. Like your story really shows that, as you said, that there is ultimately in spiritual life, there is no impediment. Like,
Yes.
you started outside, and then, then you mentioned that there was someone that did actually, facilitate you for 2 years. So it just really shows that Krishna does also reciprocate with our endeavor. Although I think sometimes as ladies, we might need to endeavor a little bit more to do the services that we
got to
want.
use your intelligence. Spiritual intelligence is not the same as material intelligence. It's beyond the body.
And then, I mean, after you did that, it does seem that, you said that you were invited to Europe. So it seems that once you had gone through that more challenging period of teaching, then it seems that devotees recognized that there was a service that you could offer, and then they started facilitating it more. And so I wanted to get back to my questions about Srila Prabhupada. So we know that Srila Prabhupada left us a whole variety of instructions. Srila Prabhupada told us to print books. He told us to do food for life, or not food for life, but prasadam distribution. He told us to distribute books, open up farm communities, open up schools. So how did you find the specific instructions? that you have really, I think, fully dedicated your life to?
Well, I did get a letter from Prabhupada for initiation. And in that letter, he gave me 6 instructions. Chant at least 16 rounds, follow strictly the regulative principles, um, do deity worship, do Sankirtan, preaching, and read and study all my books. So the first 7 years in Calcutta, I did deity worship. Next 7 years, I did book distribution, Sankirtan. And then from 1994, I've been doing the studying and reading and preaching Prabhupada's books. Yeah. So those, and then he gave me another letter afterwards for no reason. I got a letter and he told me how, with what consciousness I should do those, follow those instructions. Oh, I forgot the 6th one. The 6th one is to be 24 hours engaged. So that's a bit difficult. I'm thinking, okay, maybe someday I'll be doing that in my sleep. Not yet. Yeah, 3 things Prabhupada said are required: sincerity, enthusiasm, and cooperation with the other devotees. So 2 are individual, and the 3rd one is you have to take into account other devotees too.
Thank you so much. It's really wonderful that Prabhupada left you those very clear instructions. I also I read the letter. I really appreciated the letter, and I appreciated you noted that instruction of being fully engaged in Krishna consciousness 24 hours of the day. That's the one you're still working on. I think that's the one we're also working on. But I really appreciated how Srila Prabhupada took the time, to write it to you personally,
Right.
and to also,
Right.
to give you that second letter, and to, as you said, outline the attitude to consciousness, mood,
Right.
through which you have to do it. We will also provide the links to those letters in the chat. In the chat later. Now, getting back to instructions from Srila Prabhupada. As I mentioned before, Srila Prabhupada left us quite a list of instructions. So, how do we
Mhm.
know which ones of those instructions are relevant for us as an individual? What is the
Okay.
process we follow?
Well, you want the process. Well, first of all, we have to follow the basic ones like chant 16 rounds and follow the 4 principles. That's for everyone. But there will be a difference. There is a service each devotee has to give to Krishna and Prabhupada. There's a unique service that no one else can do. And you have to find out what that service is. And of course, in the beginning, you don't get to choose so much your service. But then when you get older, you can't run around anymore, and you have to find out, well, what service can I do now? When I was young, I was running, and now I understood. No, it's more intellectual. I have to get into that, and Bhagavatam in the 10th canto, 14th chapter, verse 7. There's a verse that says that there's unlimited qualities of Krishna. The scientists may be able to count the molecules of the sun or the snowflakes or the atoms in the earth, but that they can't count the qualities of Krishna. Why? Why not? Sanatana Goswami says in the purport that each individual living entity has something, or Krishna has something to attract each individual living entity. So we have to find out, what are we attracted to? What are we attracted to in Krishna? And what can I do for Krishna? What can I do for Srila Prabhupada? What is it I like to do for Srila Prabhupada? And then you can get empowered if you're not capable, but if something you can already do, then that would be really good. And Prabhupada did talk about giving different instructions for different people in a lecture on Queen Kunti's prayers. He said that because Krishna, he says, Krishna told Yudhishthira, go tell a lie. He told Arjuna, go and fight. He gave different instructions. So Prabhupada said, why? Because there's variety. Krishna likes variety. He likes different. Without variety, there's no enjoyment. So there's variety of instructions also. So we can look and find all those varieties of instructions, and your guru can also help you with that. So we just have to find out what is that special service I can do for Krishna, unique service.
Mm. Thank you so much for sharing. That is a very inspiring meditation. I think it's important that, as you emphasize, that we first need to follow the basics, the essentials, and it seems
Mm,
that that then can be the foundation from which we can find that other unique service. And I actually really like the process which you described, thinking about what you find attractive about Krishna, and then understanding who you are, and then kind of using that to find that unique service contribution. And I think it's encouraging to think that there is something that each one of us can offer, which is going to be like a unique gift to Krishna. I really
right.
like that. I really like that idea. So now for a bit more of a controversial question.
Hmm.
I want to find out if throughout your life, if there were any of Srila Prabhupada's teachings which you found challenging to accept or to understand.
Actually, no. I really had no problem because, if something came that was different, then I thought, okay, let me try to understand the spirit of this. Just like women are less intelligent. Okay, what is that? What is that? Mm. So then I meditated on that. I said, yeah, when they listen to the men, then they become less intelligent because they believe what the man says, and then they get an abusive relationship, and that shows. But that's material. Spiritually, women are as intelligent as men, as Prabhupada often said, that they're equal. And I that's how I understood it. As a devotee, the body is not important, and I practically experienced it, that when I would chant attentively Hare Krishna, I would connect with a reservoir of intelligence. In case I need more intelligence, it's there. You can connect with it. And I'll give you an example how I connected, because I was teaching Bhakti Vedanta course, Bhakti Vaibhav, where you have to speak on Bhagavatam. Very elevated is for the Paramahamsas, right? So sometimes I wouldn't understand the verse. So then I would read the verse, then I would chant one round, and then I would get so much understanding. It wasn't from me, it was from the Hare Krishna mantra, it was from Krishna.
Mm.
Sometimes one time I had to do a whole chapter, which was difficult, the chapter on time in the third canto. And so I read the chapter, and then I chanted all my 16 rounds. Then I got a beautiful chart, which I gave to the class that day on time and the different places of the universe. So, and sometimes I would get whole essays. I would have to write essays, and I would chant, and that would just come. All I had to do was put my pen on the paper, and it was just coming. So it doesn't matter what your lack is. If you connect with Krishna, then you can get unlimited intelligence, unlimited protection, all the things that women need. Yeah.
Thank you. That was another very beautiful answer, and you shared it so eloquently. It really stands out to me how much faith you have in the holy name, because earlier you were also sharing that that's where you really connect with Krishna, and also when chanting, you feel that's when Krishna almost reveals your your
Yes.
services to you. And I really like the point that you were saying that within the holy name is all the intelligence that we need, and within the holy name is all the protection that we need. And I think the more we can connect to our spiritual identity as servants of Krishna and as servants of the holy name, the more we have access
Yes.
to the intelligence, because you gave these examples where you really didn't feel like materially you understood, but then it was revealed to you. So that was really very beautiful. I do think it's something that I also want to see if I can personally experience, to take shelter of holy name when I feel a lacking, lacking within myself. So moving on to discussing your faith in Srila Prabhupada. Throughout your life, did you ever feel that your faith in Srila Prabhupada or the process of devotional service was challenged? You mentioned that you never questioned anything that Srila Prabhupada said and you never struggled to accept it. But did you ever feel challenged in your faith in either Prabhupada or the process?
Yeah, sometimes I did feel challenged at one point. I felt like, well, maybe I don't belong in Vrindavan, a temple or something. So then I joined with some devotees at that point to try to reform ISKCON. But then I realized, these people who are trying to reform, they also have their own problems and they need reforming too. So then I understood, well, the best way I can reform ISKCON is to reform myself. And I need to be an example of what I want everyone to see. I want to be an example. And that's what I thought. This was, many years ago. And then this was before I started preaching. And after I started preaching, one class, this was confirmed. I gave a class, I think it was in Gainesville, to the Krishna house. And after the class, one girl came up to me and said, "Thank you for existing." And I thought, wow, I did it. I showed by my life how to be a devotee. And I think that's the way to reform ISKCON.
Thank you. That is such...
Yeah.
You want to say something more?
No, it's okay.
No, it's a really powerful answer, and I actually think it's empowering because it asks us to bring the focus and the awareness back to ourselves. And we are the one person that we can always change,
Yes.
and where we can always make a difference. That's the one place where you're guaranteed that you can bring about the change that you desire. So it's a very powerful instruction. I think it's a challenging instruction. It's somewhat easier to discuss and point out what we want changed externally, but this is really powerful. And I think that I think Krishna affirmed you through that devotee, saying thank you for existing. And I'm sure there are many devotees that would say thank you for existing. Narayani, we are very grateful for your existence. And I think for me it's also quite like a healing instruction to meditate on when I do feel disturbed about things in the society. It's kind of healing to meditate upon. Well, then I need to be the example of what I think should be happening.
Right.
It's really powerful. We'll have to pray to be able to follow that
Right.
instruction.
Right.
Okay, so now I would like you to share, if Srila Prabhupada was physically present today, what do you think he would be pleased with if he observed, what is happening in his ISKCON all over the world? What would be pleasing to him?
Well, first of all, I do have a lot of faith in Harinam and that it can change the atmosphere of the world. He would be pleased with that. He would be pleased with the book distribution that is still going on quite nicely. Prasad distribution, especially in Ukraine, Turkey, and these places where people don't have access to prasad. And I think he would be pleased with women giving initiation also. That is a personal thing. Yes.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think it's good to remember that sometimes those basic instructions he gave are also complete in themselves, as you pointed out, the Harinam, the book distribution, and the Prasadam distribution. I kind of feel that if we are not sure what to do, we can always we can always fall back onto those three, and we can definitely know that that Srila Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada will be pleased.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a more of a sensitive question, but I do hope that you'll be willing to share with us. We know that there is going to come a time, very sadly, I think potentially within the next decade or two, that all of Srila Prabhupada's Diksha disciples would have left and they will no longer be
Mm-hmm.
physical present. So, how can the next generation and future generations remain loyal to Srila Prabhupada's mood and mission when we no longer, have devotees who can tell us their direct experiences and to, remind us and guide us when we are, deviating away from Srila Prabhupada's vision?
I think now is the time to take advantage of the association of Prabhupada's disciples and be open to hearing how Prabhupada did it. Sometimes we hear some people say, some devotees, younger generation, say, well, Prabhupada did things in that way just because it was that time, but now it's different and we do things differently. But actually, he did many things that were very revolutionary, like ladies' ashram and ladies' preaching and all these things. And we should learn how he did that, how he applied the teachings, and learn from Prabhupada's disciples before they leave how he did it. And just the spirit. The spirit is important, not exactly the details. But what was Prabhupada's spirit? That learn the mood and mission, how he was open to everyone, how he empowered everyone. He saw everyone as a devotee, and he would empower to preach. He encouraged everyone to preach.
Thank you. I think that's, again, a very valuable instruction to take advantage of Srila Prabhupada's disciples while they are still present and to hear from them, I think, with humility and an open mind, how did, Srila Prabhupada guide them? And, as you rightly pointed out, I think he was extraordinary, revolutionary. And I also think Srila Prabhupada was very practical. Like
Yeah.
I get the idea that he wanted to do what worked and wasn't, I think, overly concerned with traditions. So that, yeah, that is definitely a valuable instruction. I yeah, I also sometimes wonder if if we would compare Srila Prabhupada's lady disciples and their experiences with Srila Prabhupada directly and their experiences of ISKCON during his presence. If we compare that to ideas that we have now from other devotees that might be sincere but who actually did not have that personal interaction of Srila Prabhupada. If we compare those two, if we're not going to find differences, and if we should maybe not give more weight to those who directly experience Srila Prabhupada and his in his dealings with women and his dealings with diverse diverse devotees. I don't know if there's anything you want to comment on that.
Yes, we have to understand how he gave everyone empowerment to achieve their spiritual goals. And don't think that he just was trying to please the women because it was a different time. It's applicable now also how he treated the women. It's not just a special concession to women feminism. If you can call Prabhupada a feminist also by the way he was acting, I think a lot of people would if they actually he would fit in how he was behaving. He could be called a feminist, but yeah, he was very balancing. We need to balance our approach and try to understand his spirit, his mood, as you said, his mood and mission.
Yes, I think that's the key, understanding Srila Prabhupada's mood and mission. I really liked what you said. He was just, I think Prabhupada's meditation was how to facilitate every soul's service.
Yeah.
and he didn't so much concern, because as you said, if we think that his instructions was just, or his way of dealing was just unique to the situation, in the 1960s and 70s, because he was trying to appease, women, then I think we kind of miss Srila Prabhupada's compassion for people
Yeah.
and his
Right.
desire
Right.
to, connect everyone to Krishna. And
Yes.
yeah, I remember this pastime. I've been searching for it. I've been struggling to find it, but there is a pastime where the the GPC was meeting and then coming up with
Mhm.
different resolutions and then presenting it to Srila Prabhupada, and it was in Mayapur. And then on a particular day, one of the resolutions they proposed was that there were no single mothers allowed to live in the temples. So they read this out to Srila Prabhupada, and he just became completely quiet. And then they could tell from his facial expression that he was actually feeling, very remorseful about this proposal they had made. And then they asked him, Srila Prabhupada, should we just scrap this one? And then Srila Prabhupada's reply was that he just wants the women to become Krishna conscious. Because he
Yeah.
understood that the managers felt that single mothers, can't really make a contribution, and that they were
Yeah.
more, of a burden to the temple. But Srila Prabhupada didn't see them that way.
No.
No, he
No.
just wanted them to be Krishna conscious. So, and I think that sometimes we can miss that, that
Yeah.
was Prabhupada's main intention, was any, like, no matter what it takes, just somehow give them opportunity to become Krishna conscious. So for me, that was very beautiful pastime. If I find it, I will I will share it with
Yeah. I think.
everyone.
Yeah. That would. Yeah. I heard that too. Yeah.
Hmm. And there was even
Okay.
another instance where he argued with someone about the same matter, and Prabhupada said that the ladies who are single with children don't even have to do service. They can just be there at the temple, look after the children, and chant. So very, very powerful. Um, so coming towards end of our questions, I also wanted to ask, as one of our senior Vaishnavis in the movement, is there any message or instruction you feel that you would like to give to the upcoming generations of devotees?
Well, I would just urge everyone to understand how Prabhupada gave both men and women empowerment to achieve their spiritual goals. Single women, even, I mean, actually, the single women encouraged, the single mothers encouraged a lot. They'd sacrificed their children to the nurseries at the age of 1, 3, and went out distributing. There are so many cases like that where the mothers weren't with their children. And so Prabhupada, he just wanted us to be Krishna conscious, and he accepted us as capable of serving Krishna, going back to Godhead in this lifetime, he emphasized. So we need to study his relationships with his devotees, male and female, how he gave everyone an equal chance. He didn't allow any material designation like varnashram to keep anyone back. He didn't keep us locked up in varnashram. And his ideas were not exactly like some people's ideas today. The Asuric Varnashram, there's Daiva Varnashram and Asuric Varnashram. And so he allowed us to transcend even Varnashram by chanting and hearing Hare Krishna. Everybody can transcend. And so we should never give up. Don't think it's hopeless. Don't think, oh, I'm just, I'm a woman, or I'm this, or I'm that. The spiritual strength is stronger than the material power, and nothing can stop you if you have a strong spiritual desire. No one, nothing can stop you. And if you really accept the spirit of Prabhupada's mood and mission, and Prabhupada, who accepts everyone as qualified to be a devotee, every human being, then you accept everyone, that everyone can transcend, everyone can be a devotee, and everyone can be spiritual master of the whole world. He wanted hundreds of thousands of spiritual masters. Where are they going to come from? And so, and he told all of us that you have to be guru, you have to teach. All of us had that. Lord Chaitanya also is instructing in Chaitanya Charitamrita that you be guru, you help your family, you help your neighbors, whoever you meet, just tell them about Krishna.
Thank you so much for a beautiful answer. May I ask one question that I personally have, about that instruction that you just mentioned, that Prabhupada wanted all of his followers to take up the service, of becoming able and qualified to be, to be guru to everyone. So may I ask a question about that specific?
Sure.
So I've heard quite often that one of the critiques for ladies taking on that service is that, devotees would argue, like, why do they want that service? Like, why do they want to have that position or that authority or that status or the title? Why do they want it? So could you maybe share with us why it's not because I've never got an idea that it's about the status or the position, but why do you think there are some ladies that do think they want to do this?
Because Prabhupada wants it. Prabhupada wants it, so we want it. It was Prabhupada's desire. And so whatever I was doing in my devotional service was like, just do the needful. They needed pujaris, so I became a pujari. They needed book distributors. I became a book distributor. They needed teachers of the shastras. I became that. And they need gurus. There's not enough gurus. Some devotees, some gurus have thousands. They need more gurus. So I said, okay, let me try and do that service for Srila Prabhupada. And then, of course, I did have, when I was chanting japa in 1994, and that thing, part of that was, you should be guru. Part of that inspiration. Although I was horrified, I said, no, how can I? And I was horrified to speak. And actually, I was thinking, how can I speak? It was kind of against my nature. Maybe it's my nature, but I didn't know it. I guess it's my nature to speak now. But yeah, I'm just doing the needful. It's a thankless task. There's so much opposition. And it's very
much opposition.
And it's not only on the gross, it's on the subtle also. You do feel it. But Prabhupada wants it, so he's giving me protection. I took protection of the GBC. I'm not going independently. So many people said, just go and do it. I said, no, I'm going to take protection. I'm going to need protection. My protection is the GBC. If I go do it myself, these people will just attack me. Now they're attacking the GBC more. Yeah, you have to, I'm doing the needful. It's a need in ISKCON. It's a great need. And so that's why. And I don't especially want to do it. I didn't have desire to be a pujari or book distributor or any of these things, but it just happened that there's a need. And so if I can fulfill that need, then good. People think they nominated me. They think I can do it. Okay, let me go along with it.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think that it's important that more devotees hear that I think for you and for other ladies, the motivation, to do that service is because you feel that you've been asked to do it, whether that is from Krishna within the heart or the devotee community. And as you've rightly pointed out, we have a dire need for more senior devotees to take up that service. And it's really not about the position or the title. It's about, it's about doing this for Srila Prabhupada. There is one of our viewers that had a related question, but you can let us know if you're happy to answer the question. They are asking, Sure. Yeah, they're asking how you deal with people within ISKCON who are against, ladies becoming Diksha gurus. And they're also asking if the opposition, because as you've rightly pointed out, even though you have, decided to do this through the sanction of the GPC, there is still a lot of opposition. So they're also asking if you find it upsetting.
Um, well, I found it, I waited 10 years. I started 2012, and they never said, GBC never said yes, never said no. For 10 years, they just put me on hold. So then at a certain point last year, I got inspired to um, act. I didn't say a word or do anything for 10 years. I said, okay, I just accepted it. Then last year, I got inspired again from within that I have to do something. And I did, and it happened. Um, and then in November last year, they said, "You're on pause." I got the letter, "You're on pause." So, of course, I was very disappointed that the GBC couldn't protect me. I took their protection. But at the same time, I said, okay, maybe Krishna wants me to be more qualified. I need some more time to make myself more Krishna conscious and more qualified to do the service. Um, and I don't have any bad thoughts because I see Krishna is in control. Nothing's wrong. Krishna's in control. And I just have to follow what Krishna wants me to do. Um, yeah, so I was trying to think of all the good reasons why I should be paused. They said for 3 years. I don't think it's going to be 3 years. I think it's going to happen much sooner. And I wasn't saying anything, but then I did come out and spoke on a podcast with Bhakti Kids, and I did speak because I was traveling and I felt very inspired by Prabhupada in Melbourne. I was staying on the same floor and I was always going to Prabhupada there. And I felt like he wanted me to do this podcast. And not only he wanted me to do it, he was telling me what to say. So then I spoke out. And that's why I'm speaking now. Now it's the time. 10 years I didn't say a word. Now it's the time to speak because they actually, GBC approved it, and now they stopped it. But now I see other devotees are speaking out. Before, nobody was speaking also. But since that time, some devotees are now speaking out and pointing out what's the problem there, the wrong mentality that the opposition has. And I'm very confident that very soon it will be resolved, and this deviant mentality will be exposed, and we'll be able to go on with satisfying Prabhupada's desire.
Thank you so much for sharing. I really feel it's very instructive for all of us younger devotees how you are acknowledging that there is an issue, but at the same time you're not allowing the issue to dictate how you're going to act, or respond.
Right.
I really see you're practicing so much humility and tolerance. And again, I really see that faith that you have that Krishna is in control and he will allow the situation to resolve itself at his time. So that is very encouraging. I do think a lot of devotees have felt quite enraged by what has happened. So I think it's also very powerful that you are setting an example for us as well,
Uh,
how to deal
yeah.
with this.
What?
And I think myself, many others,
See, after I gave initiation, I
we are
immediately
definitely.
yeah, I can speak. Yeah. And so after I gave initiation last
Yes,
year,
yes, please do.
Jamashtami, I went to Vrindavan, even though devotees were saying, "Don't go back to India, don't go back, they'll do something." I said, "Come on." And so I went back to Vrindavan. Everybody was congratulating me in my temple, and from all over the world, and the majority of Indians,
Mm.
their culture is to respect their mothers. So this is not according to the Indian culture that women can't be guru. It's very much part of the Indian culture, and I got that respect, and I didn't feel like any opposition at all when I was in India. It's happening more online and and like that. But yeah, I felt very encouraged. Everyone was encouraging me, and online also it was like that. The encouragement was tremendous, and I feel like the devotees are with me, and the Indian devotees are also with me. There's just a few, a handful, that are trying to take over and stop it. But and Prabhupada's in control, and he will rectify everything. Everything gets rectified in ISKCON.
Mm. Mm. Thank you so much, Pata, for giving such an encouraging answer. I feel personally, I feel hopeful now
Yes,
after
yes,
hearing you speak, and I think what stood out to me is that those devotees who see you as a mother, because you mentioned you went back to your temple in India, so I assume that you have developed relationships there, and it seems that they see you as a mother, and therefore they can also
yeah,
accept you in
mm,
the role of Diksha Guru, because they don't just see you
yeah.
as like a woman,
No,
but it's
no.
like I'm a
Mm,
mother. So that's
mhm,
really beautiful, and
yes,
I'm very happy to hear that you feel the support of so many devotees.
yes, yeah.
So Mata, may I ask you one last question before we
Okay,
greet everyone? So I was thinking about this this question while you were speaking, and sharing how you are dealing with this challenging situation. What advice do you have for devotees in ISKCON when they are feeling very disturbed about things happening in the movement and feel very discouraged about that, and then they might even feel like they don't want to be part of ISKCON because of certain things happening, and we have to acknowledge there might be some legitimate reason for their concern.
yes. Well, first of all, you have to take the nectar, see where the nectar is. There's two sides. There's bad. There's also good. Not everyone is bad. Not all the devotees are bad and have done bad things. The majority are good. Search for the good, like Prabhupada says. Be a bee. Look for the honey. So that's the first thing I would say. And then if you're upset by the other ones, there's a there's actually a prayer I learned from Shukavaha, um, and she says, "Nothing is wrong. Krishna is in perfect control. Oh Lord, what lesson do you want me to learn?" So yeah, there is something we need to learn. Maybe we have to change our attitude um, in the situation. And yes, I'm also praying that, okay, let me see what is the benefit here for this to happen to me. And because do have to see the hand of Krishna behind it. If you separate yourself from Krishna, then you will just suffer. And that includes mentally. Mentally, you will suffer.
Mm.
Physically, you will suffer. Because a lot of diseases are caused by your mind. There's a book by Louise Hay, The Causes, Mental Causes of Diseases. So you need to definitely connect with Krishna, connect with the devotee somehow or other when you are disturbed. I know I went through menopause, and when you're in menopause,
Mm.
you feel like a teenager again, and you think, oh yeah, now it's time to get married. And like my husband had left me, and I thought, oh yeah. And then there was a few men, and then but then I thought, what would Prabhupada want me to do now? And the answer was just keep in your Krishna consciousness and don't get married. And also, I was thinking, okay, what's my shelter? So I went to the deities,
Mm.
I went to the devotees, I went to the books, I went to my japa, and I got shelter. There is shelter in ISKCON. but you have to look for it. It may not be obvious. There might be some simple devotee who's a great devotee, but they're not showing it. You don't know it. You don't see it. So you need to find out somebody to associate with. You need to find your attentive japa. You need to ask the question to Prabhupada's book, open the book and find the answer. I think I did that yesterday. I can't remember the answer now. It was a really good answer though. Oh yeah. I was asking, so what should I do in this situation? And then it was the story of Mohini cheating the demons and helping the demigods. Looked like the demons had the nectar, but then Mohini took it away and gave it to the demigods. So I think, yes, that will happen in my situation. So it does work. The process works, but you do have to have faith in it and don't give up. Just don't give up. You need to have faith that, yes, things are going to work out okay. Justice will be served and the truth will prevail. And we need that faith.
Thank you so much for sharing. I really like the meditation that I'm connected to Krishna. And as you said, someone else shared this prayer with you that everything is good and Krishna is in control. I think, that can really soothe us, and it can really give us solace if we can meditate on that. I see that we've got quite a few questions coming in now, a little bit late. Viewers, you're getting excited and enthused hearing you speak. So do we have time for 2 more questions? There's more questions, but I'm wondering, do we have time for 1 or 2 more?
Sure.
We'll keep them brief. So I think this person might not be familiar with everything you've spoken before and on other occasions, because they're asking, did Srila Prabhupada want women to be gurus? So I think it's an innocent question. I don't think there's any malice. I just think they want clarification. Right. So maybe you can give us a few points on that.
Yes. Yeah, well, the first point is, it's there in so many lectures. There was a Vyasa Puja lecture from London where he says, men and women, I want you all to be gurus. There was a conversation with my god sister Rukmini, and he looked at all the boys and girls in the room and he said, I want each one of you to go and start a temple. And Rukmini asked, and the girls too? And said, yes. And she was like 16 years old. And then the third point was there was a letter by Prabhupada. He wanted everyone to study Bhakti Shastri, Bhakti Vaibhav, Bhakti Vedanta. And he said, and all the boys and girls who get the Bhakti Vedanta title shall be initiating Diksha Gurus of ISKCON. That's in writing. It's a letter to, I can't remember who, I think, I can't remember his name, Hansaduta, yes. He did want us all to be Diksha Gurus, and we are human beings. Lord Chaitanya's instruction, I want every person to share to be Guru and instruct the people in Krishna consciousness. And so, yes, and one professor asked Prabhupada, the women can? Prabhupada said, yes, maybe a few, but they can also, just like if you're a professor, it doesn't matter, you're man or woman, doctor, it doesn't matter, but also Guru can be.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Just a quick comment, because someone's asking whether the session is being recorded. Yes, it is being recorded, and you can find it on the same place in Facebook that you've seen the live. The recording will be available, and also on YouTube. We'll leave you the link in the chat. But thank you so much for that answer, Narayani Prabhu. I think what becomes clear is that Prabhupada perhaps didn't make a direct statement that I want women as a category to become Diksha Gurus, because he included everyone. He said he wanted his disciples to become gurus, as he didn't say, like, I want African devotees and, Chinese devotees and Russian devotees to become guru. He didn't feel the need to put women in a separate category. You just said like boys, girls, all my disciples. I want
Yes.
you to become qualified, and I want you to take on this service. So thank you for clarifying that. I think in
I,
Prabhupada's vision, there was less differentiation between his
yeah.
male and female disciples to begin with. Was there something you'd like to add?
hmm Yeah, I just thought he was asked, who will be guru after you leave? And he said, whoever follows. Whoever follows me
Mm.
can be guru. So all of my followers can be guru. And so that's
Mm.
everyone. Yeah, as you
That's
said,
really
it's not, he didn't
powerful because
dispute.
that doesn't.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's really powerful because it's not about the men nor the women. It's about the one that follows.
yes.
That one is qualified. That's a very powerful instruction. So the second question that we have from the audience that I wanted to ask you, and I'm not exactly sure what they mean, but maybe you have some insight. She's asking, isn't Srila Prabhupada's and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement of Krishna consciousness above Indian philosophy? It's from Haripriya Devi Dasi. I'm not sure what she means by Indian philosophy. Maybe she means more Indian culture, but I don't know if you want to comment anything on that.
Yeah. It's definitely, I mean, Indian culture follows a lot of the Vaishnava philosophy because everyone was a devotee 5,000 years ago when Krishna came. I mean, mostly people were following the culture. And when Lord Chaitanya came, all of India became devotees. So Indian culture is very close to devotee culture in one sense. But after some years after, of course, after Krishna left, then it became degraded, and the Varnashram became degraded, and it was according to birth. So then Lord Chaitanya came and he changed all that. A Muslim person born in Muslim family was Namacharya, and Rupa and Sanatan, who had become like Muslims according to the Brahmins, they become the leaders. The leaders were were not were not the Brahmins. Leaders of Lord Chaitanya, somewhere there, but the main leaders were not. Um, so yes, Indian culture has become degraded. I just heard a lecture of Prabhupada today. He was saying how it is the Varnashram has become so degraded. So right now, but there are some good things still there in Vedic culture, like how they respect women, how they respect women as mothers, how they respect their mother. Actually, I wouldn't say they respect all women as mothers. Now that the Western culture has degraded that also, so they don't, especially Western women, they don't see as mothers so much. But um, there are some good things in the Indian culture. Uh, but we do go beyond the Indian culture as well, completely beyond, and that was Prabhupada's gift, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur's gift, and Bhaktisiddhanta Swami Saraswati's gift, that they went beyond the Indian culture to accept. Um, I mean, Prabhupada did the most. He accepted Malechas, Yavanas. He accepted people from out of India as devotees, and he was criticized for that. He was criticized for that. Yeah, I mean, there's nice things, but there's also, you can't really follow the Varnashram that they have in India now, which is according to birth.
Thank you so much for that very enlightening answer. I think, again, what you pointed out is that we have to be discerning and we can see what is valuable about Indian culture. And I think Indian culture is obviously also diverse because it's a very big
Yes.
country, different states and different subcultures. And we can see what's valuable, but we also need to acknowledge where there's a difference between, Indian culture and what Srila Prabhupada and our other acharyas, specifically in our line of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, what they were trying to set, for us as the culture and the standards to follow. So thank you so much
Mhm.
for sharing your valuable time with us tonight. And thank you very much for everyone that was listening and joining us online. Someone wrote a very beautiful message on Facebook. They said, "Thank you for being such a pillar of faith. We can see faith like Prahlad Maharaj in action. Thank you for the firm faith and the conviction that there is shelter to be had if we dive deeply." So
That's
that
good.
was a beautiful takeaway.
Yeah.
I really appreciated you emphasizing so many times that there is shelter and there is answers and there is hope, and
Yes.
it's our responsibility to find it. Is there any last closing comments you'd like to greet us with?
No, I just again, don't give up. Don't give up hope. Keep trying to advance in Krishna consciousness, and Krishna will see your sincere effort, and he will help you.
Thank you so much. I think that's a beautiful note to end on. Krishna will see our sincere endeavor and our effort, and Krishna will help us. So thank you everyone for joining us tonight, and we're looking forward to seeing you soon with the next Many Moons podcast. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.